Россию! За победу! Ура!
The Russian president has long been one of the most significant figures in world politics. While most people were aware of his potential for danger, they never anticipated that he would go to such lengths as to launch a full-scale military attack against the Ukraine. Could he be the most dangerous man in the world? People are wondering how he could be so cruel and ruthless. Let's examine Vladimir Putin's personality. The Kremlin leader's reclusive personality developed during his childhood in Leningrad. Putin's mother was a factory worker, and his father was a conscript in the Soviet Navy, serving in the submarine fleet in the early 1930s. Early in World War II, his father served in the Destruction Battalion of the NKVD, which later became the KGB, now the FSB. He was severely wounded in 1942. Vladimir Spiridonovich and Maria Ivanovna, his parents, had 2 more children, both boys, but they both died before Putin was born. Albert, born in the 1930s, died in infancy, and Viktor, born in 1940, died of diphtheria and starvation in 1942 during the siege of Leningrad by Nazi Germany forces in World War II. He grew up in poor conditions. As he writes in his own biography, "My family lived in a ramshackle Soviet apartment with 2 other families in a block of flats that was apparently infested with rats. There were hordes of rats in the front entryway. My friends and I used to chase them around with sticks," Putin wrote in his 2000 autobiography. Putin's former school teacher, Vera Dmitrievna Gurevich, called the family's living conditions cold and awful. "There was no hot water, no bathtub. The toilet was horrendous," she once said. In recent biographies about Putin's childhood, it's been described as mean, hungry, and impoverished. He was bullied and humiliated as a child, which is why he started doing martial arts. By the age of 16, he was a top-ranked expert at Sambo, a Russian combination of judo and wrestling. In his teenage years, Putin began to exhibit the ambitions for which he would later be known, and he enrolled in School 281, a prestigious high school that only accepted applicants with nearly perfect grades. The university was the only one in Russia to emphasize chemistry, a subject that interested Putin. He soon turned his attention to liberal arts and biology, though. Putin participated in handball and broadcasted Beatles and other Western rock music while working at the school radio station. As a teenager who loved spy movies, he wanted to join the KGB, the Russian Secret Service. Putin earned his law degree from Leningrad State University in 1975, but instead of going into practice right away, he was the only member of his class of 100 to be hired by the KGB. He was assigned to a branch that was in charge of hiring foreigners to work as information gatherers for the KGB. Early in the 1980s, Putin fell in love with and wed Lyudmila, a former French and English teacher. He was sent by the KGB to Dresden, East Germany, in 1985, where he lived covertly as Mr. Adamov, the head of a social and cultural club called the Soviet-German House of Friendship. Unlike many other KGB agents, Putin seemed to genuinely enjoy his interactions with Germans and respect their culture. After the Berlin Wall fell, Putin returned to the Soviet Union and continued working for the KGB. Little is known about this period, but in 1996, he somehow managed to join President Boris Yeltsin's inner circle as Deputy Chief Administrator of the Kremlin. In August 1999, after Yeltsin had gone through 5 prime ministers in 17 months, he appointed Putin, who was deemed unfit to succeed the unwell president by many. First, he lacked political experience. Second, his appearance and personality were uninteresting. On New Year's Eve 1999, Yeltsin abruptly resigned as president and named Putin as his replacement, shocking Russia and the entire world. In 2000, in the Russian election, Putin was elected president after beating the 11 other candidates. And ever since then, Putin has stayed in power as one of the few European leaders. In Russia, leaders before Putin could only be elected for 2 terms at a time. Putin managed to change the law so that he can be re-elected again and again. Putin is the reflection of unhealthy masculinity. Usually a tough exterior and a brave face are used to mask wounds like lack of affection or loneliness. This also applies to Putin, who constantly seeks attention and exhibits his masculine dominance whenever he can, or when doing so serves his best interests. He's been spotted in recent years riding a Harley-Davidson, brandishing rifles, and fishing bare-chested, all in an effort to project an air of superior masculinity. Some say Putin is a full-blown abuser and possible asexual. Of course, macho behavior and even violence are also risks associated with always being the dominant male. Erich Schmidt-Einbohm, a German author, alleges that Putin physically abused his ex-wife Ludmila in the 1980s and that the former KGB agent still has no relationship with her, they divorced, or with his two daughters from the marriage, Mirya, 37, and Ekaterina, 36, to this day. Curious fact about Putin is also revealed by the same author: sex and a sex life are totally alien to him. If Putin is currently the biggest threat to the West, Adolf Hitler was another world threat in the middle of the 20th century. A man who shares some traits with the Russian president, including childhood traumas, lack of affection, and desire for power, both economically and socially, as well as territorially. Although Vladimir Putin has not come close to starting any anti-Semitic holocaust in recent years, many claim that he exhibits signs of expansionist fascism and a preoccupation with achieving complete Russian dominance. This story is based on nostalgia because, in the eyes of many political scientists, Putin is merely a byproduct of the U.S. humiliation of the Soviet Union at the end of the Cold War. Many believe that Vladimir Putin's only real obsession is gaining power through instilling fear in others, a man who presents himself as someone who longs to bring Russia back to the political and territorial relevance of the times of the Soviet Union, but who, in reality, only wants to be admired and loved. This is a description of one of the most dangerous men in the world right now, psychologically. The war in Ukraine doesn't develop the way Putin wants. Ukraine's forces have been difficult to defeat. There have been threats from Russia about using nuclear weapons. The world holds its breath and waits for Putin's next step. What do you think about Vladimir Putin? Is he our generation's Hitler? Do you think he'll bring nuclear weapons to the battlefield in Ukraine? Will there be peace again soon? Please leave your comment, and I hope to see you in the next one. Check out the story about the richest Norwegian alive, John Fredrickson.